Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Fred Wellman, host of On Democracy Sunday. You are here, you're live, we're everywhere. We're so glad to see you guys here joining us. We're excited to have you. We are having it's going to be a great day, and we just appreciate joining us. Hey, we are here. Hold on. So it is Sunday morning. We're having a lot of fun. We got great guests. We have some drama. There's some news going on in the world, as you know. We're going to start with that first, and then we'll talk to our great guest that we've got. There. Okay. Exciting times. So it is never a dull moment on Sunday morning. I was just talking to JJ, Katie, our producers, and we are ready to see you guys. You're already in the chat with us. Obviously, man, it's been a crazy week already with the first confirmation hearings going. And then on top of that, we've got the inauguration. Of course, God got a vote and it got too cold. So they're going indoors. So we got a lot to talk about. We've got great guests to talk about with it. I talked to them about it. And of course, we have a surprise guest because as always in live production, things change. But that's okay. We'll figure it out. In the meantime, let's talk about the news. And I wanted to start. Okay, I'm going to set this up. Okay. This is the official photo of Donald J. Trump for his second term in office. Yes, that is, I'm not shitting you. That is really his official photo. And I love the headline for the New York Times there. Why is this man glaring? I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know what to say with that. It's like, okay, there it is. That is the official photo. That's what you're going to see when you walk into federal buildings for the next 4 years. You're going to see this man with his kind of droopy right eye. You know, it's the right eye's a little droopy, so that's an issue. But nonetheless, there he is, our guy. Anyway, that's interesting news to me. Well, let's talk about real news. Let's start with we got the confirmation hearings this week. Started this week, last week. We got more to come this week. Of course, the big ones are not out there yet. Tulsi Gabbard hasn't been scheduled. One of the biggest has become the most controversial for them on Capitol Hill is the RFK Jr. to be a Health and Human Services Secretary. As of Friday, the Office of Government Ethics was still evaluating Kennedy's financial disclosures, which are required of all cabinet officials. It's delayed his anticipated hearings for quite some time, but that's just his kind of excuse they're using. I mean, he's an anti-vaccine activist, as you know, former presidential candidate. He recently amended his prior disclosures on the ethics, and ethics officials are looking for potential conflicts of interest. There were rumors flying in D.C. that contrary to what he said publicly previously, that it contrary to what he said, he didn't make zero money from his anti-vaccine work. There's worries that he made over $1 million plus with certain organizations. So obviously he's updating his ethics. Now, senators will traditionally wait to schedule a confirmation hearing with a nominee until they've got that process complete. But look, it's also giving time for his many critics to kind of line up against him and start talking about him. And the interesting thing about RFK Jr. is it's not just left or right that's lining up against him. It's everybody on both sides, right? So he's got liberals, conservatives, it's got health people from prior administrations, to include prior Trump administrations. He's got a very slender path to confirmation compared to many of the other nominees. You know, just so we have perspective of what we're talking about giving RFK Jr., who's, of course, all kinds of conspiracy theories. There's a story that his daughter tells them cutting a whale's head. There's the story he told himself of finding a dead bear on the side of the road and then dumping it in Central Park. Besides all that, we're talking about a man that want to give a $2 trillion agency, okay? $2 trillion agency, which oversees Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act. They approve drugs, they approve medical equipment, vaccines, they fund billions of dollars in scientific research, and they steer the response for virus outbreaks, sort of like, COVID. So it's a big job. It's not a small job. Senator Elizabeth Warren she's on the finance committee, and she has rolled in hot. You guys got to hear this number. She has sent a list of over 175 questions to RFK Jr. asking about, specifically focusing on past quotes of his. Like almost every question apparently has like a quote he said, and do you still believe this? That is like things like his suggestion that coronavirus may have been ethnically targeted to spare Jews and Chinese, which if you've seen that video, he says that in a setting during the COVID. It's just nuts. So meanwhile, what's really interesting to me is conservative activists are also rolling it. Even former Vice President Mike Pence, they're questioning RFK Jr.'s commitment to the anti-abortion movement. Okay, so the anti-abortion folks are rolling in because he has not committed to getting rid of the anti-abortion pill and other things. Of course, in the past, he was pro-choice. So this guy's getting it from both sides. On top of that, you have public health leaders, Democratic activists who are continuing campaigns. There's literally a Stop RFK Jr. War room from Protect Our Care. They've been highlighting his history, his remarks. One of the big things we saw recently was the governor of Hawaii actually flew to D.C. and was there to interview him to talk about or speak out against him, talk about he was in Samoa. And there's a story where RFK Jr. went to American Samoa and talked them out of using the measles vaccine, leading to a huge measles outbreak that actually killed quite a number of kids. So a public polling is kind of split. Found 30% of Americans favor Kennedy's selection, while 42% oppose it. The remainder are undecided. So even the public isn't sure about him taking this job. Either way, the entire nomination is one of the most absurd in the Trump administration, which has been a full of absurd nominations to date. So we'll keep our eye on that one. As you guys know, inauguration is tomorrow. What can we say about that? Inauguration starts tomorrow. There's going to be a lot on their plate. They've made it clear. One of Donald Trump's biggest campaign things he said was that they have a plan for day one. They kept saying day one things. He's been telling folks that he's got a pretty disturbing plan to go after right on the day he's there. He told the Wall Street Journal report this week that Trump is ready to bypass Congress with orders on the border, tariffs, and other agenda items. He had a meeting with Senate Republicans just last week where he talked about at least 100 executive orders that he frankly said will push the limits of presidential authority during his 2-hour meeting with them. He's pitched tariffs because he thinks the revenue that he expects to raise is a solution for all of his issues. If you remember, he's talked about tariffs paying for creating more manufacturing jobs, reducing the national debt, subsidizing child care, and even ending wars because of them, which is apparently no one can explain it. That's not how tariffs work. Oddly, this week you may have seen he posted on Truth Social apparently saying that he's going to create the External Revenue Service, which will collect tariffs, duties, and all revenue that come from foreign sources. Those tasks are currently handled by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency. Trump, of course, has not explained how an External Revenue Service would do things differently or even function or anything. Of course, he just has these ideas. Among his earliest moves, the president-elect's likely to end legal programs that were helping the Biden administration put out to end, for asylum-seeking migrants who have entered illegally. There's the CBP-1 app that came up in Kristi Noem's confirmation hearing, which was an app that helped reduce the number of illegal crossings. He's also expected to revoke the humanitarian deportation protections that the Biden administration created, which is a lot of people. That's our Haitian people, the Sudanese that come in, some from Venezuela. Those are under humanitarian deportation protections. The Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, those are expected to be removed, their protections removed, and then they'll be deported. So these are all on day one. He's going to scrap a memo that directed Customs Enforcement to focus on only serious criminals. We heard rumors there was going to be raids in Chicago this week, while Tom Homan now is kind of backing off that. Accusing the media when Tom Homan was the person who went in the media and said there'd be raids in Chicago, but apparently it's everybody else's fault. All these things are out there. Here's the rumors we've heard separately. We've heard that they plan to use the National Guard more aggressively. They have apparently figured out they can't use them to do raids, but they do plan to put more National Guardsmen at the border. On top of that, we've heard from sources that they plan to put out an executive order on day one that'll ban all transgender service members from service completely. No grandfather clause whatsoever. Everyone who is even currently serving will be booted out, which is a pretty serious thing. A lot of this is going on, and there's going to be a lot of change. It is going to be a very busy opening few days beyond, if you will, the pomp and circumstance and ceremonies, right? And we'll be trying to keep our eye on those as much as we can. We'll actually be talking to some of our guests about some of the more nefarious things that may be coming. And it's going to be hard. I mean, one of the challenges I think we'll all have as news consumers or not news consumers these days, as you know, is the idea that we'll be sidetracked by the big flashy things, right? The outrage of the week and buying Greenland and such, when the really dirty work's going to be done by Stephen Miller and Russ Vought and others very quietly behind the scenes. So we'll try to keep track of those and explain them. Another big thing from last night, of course, is the TikTok ban went into effect. For those of you who are on TikTok, you got this message last night. You tried to log into TikTok saying that they are being banned here in the United States about 11 p.m. last night. This went into effect. They do a little shout out for President, elect Trump in there. Like, don't worry, Trump's going to save us, which is kind of funny because if I don't know if you guys know the history, but back in 2020, you may remember during the campaign in 2020, Trump had his first rally in Oklahoma, I believe it was, and TikTok users used the app to rally and buy up all the tickets, reserve all the tickets, so the turnout was low. He was so angry at TikTok users for doing that, he tried to ban it by executive order, which was blocked by U.S. courts. He hates TikTok. Charlie Kirk was backing it all up, but hey, here we are 4 years later. He uses for his re-election campaign. The CEO of TikTok is sort of becoming a bud, got invited to the inauguration, as a matter of fact, and suddenly Donald Trump's going to save TikTok. He said this morning that he does plan to implement a 90-day reprieve, like executive order, as soon as he takes office. So I mean, President Biden chose not to. The ironic part about this one you'll enjoy, guys, is that Tom Cotton has been one of the loudest voices trying to get rid of TikTok. Right, that's his obsession, is communist China, and we're going to find Tom Cotton's going to find himself on the other side of Donald Trump here soon, which is going to be delicious in every way. There's no way to not enjoy the Schadenfreude of Tom Cotton being the wrong side of Donald Trump. The Chinese open, obviously, for those who understand, I've seen a few people comment before, well, it's just a luxury item or it's just a silly little dance app. To be candid, it's not. Over 170 million Americans use TikTok. I've seen numbers as large as 700,000 people actually make their living using TikTok for marketing their brands or using their activism. I met dozens of very engaged, very smart activists who were using TikTok very effectively to spread the word to young people and everybody. It's not just sort of a dance app, if those aren't familiar with it. So it is owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance. They are shutting down their U.S. operation. If they had not shut it down, there was a very good chance that literally the plug would have been pulled by the U.S. government, which is a whole host of risks. Again, you'll see what happens. The Supreme Court blocked they on I think it was last week, the Supreme Court reiterated the ban, so they would not block it's going into effect. The White House, it reiterated the ban that it's up to the incoming administration to take action. Either way, as of now, if you try to use TikTok in the United States, you will find a message saying it's not available. On the good news, if you're a TikTok user, join us on YouTube and Blue Sky. We're having a great time. In the meantime, we'll follow those news stories and more. We got a lot to talk about this week. I had a great opportunity to talk to, as you know, we always try to find guests that are different sides of the stories and different angles on what's happening today and the current news. If you don't know him, you should. Jonathan Alter is an award-winning author, political analyst, documentary filmmaker, columnist, television, radio host. He's done it all. His latest book is called American Reckoning, which was inside Trump's trial and his own. Before that, he wrote one of what's considered one of the top biographies of Jimmy Carter, of course, who just passed. So I was really excited to get a chance to talk to Jonathan Alter. Jonathan, let's welcome Jonathan to the show. Welcome to the show. It's so great to see you. Thanks for joining us on your busy schedule right now. It's great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Fred.
Man, it's Sunday. It's the day before Donald J. Trump takes office for the second time. I guess, you've interviewed 9 of the last 10 living presidents. Yeah. You sat in on the felony trial for the first former president. Tomorrow, that man gets inaugurated again. I guess I'd love to start off with, how are you feeling today as we prepare for yet another Donald Trump?
I'd be lying if I said it wasn't depressing, but my overall feeling is democracy has been dented, but not destroyed. And so we want to keep from having the whole American experiment totaled, right?
Right.
So there's a difference between this is more than a fender bender, but it's less than totaling the whole car. And it's up to the rest of us to limit the damage. So we're in bomb damage assessment territory and efforts to try to stop the bleeding.
I really like that perspective. I wrote a piece this weekend saying, the MAGA, the propagandists want us to believe all is lost, that democracy is over. I mean, I see so many people who are liberals and progressives, on Blue Sky and others saying, oh my God, what are you doing? All is lost. And I don't share that belief, obviously. I mean, he is a lame duck president already. You're right. Democracy is.
There's no way, by the way, 4 years from tomorrow, he will be gone. I know that, Bill Maher, all these people, he'll never leave. And because Bill Maher was right in 2020, everybody assumes that these people who say that the 22nd Amendment doesn't matter, are wrong. And he's not going to be there for a third term. It's the Constitution is not ambiguous about this, as it is on the 14th Amendment with the insurrection. So this is not a close call, and it doesn't matter how many Republicans are in the tank for him. It's not happening. So the countdown, the 4-year countdown starts Monday.
Yeah, and you're already seeing self-inflicted pain. I don't know if you follow this situation with Mike Turner from the House.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a perfect example. I mean, Mar-a-Lago didn't want you. They lost a key ally who's already said, F you guys. I mean, they're overreaching and they haven't even been sworn in yet, have they?
Yeah, and the Mike Turner thing is interesting on a number of levels. It's interesting that they would play that kind of hardball at this point. It's very discouraging in terms of the future of Ukraine.
Yeah,
because it suggests that they're trying to pack pro-Putin people into key positions in the Congress as well as in the administration. I don't give Marco Rubio a lot of time for his argument in favor of Ukraine. I think he'll probably fold like a cheap suit, pretty soon, and convert to being anti-Ukraine. But where it's a little bit encouraging is that Turner didn't go to the gallows, willingly, and I think he complained about it on TV like almost instantly. And the other thing is that they right now, before the elections to fill the open seats, they only have a 1.1 vote margin. So theoretically, if Mike Turner went over to Hakeem Jeffries' office and Hakeem Jeffries said, look, if you side with us, you'll be chair of the Intelligence Committee. You'll have your old chairmanship back. And if Turner was a little bit more like Jim Jeffords, who was a senator from Vermont, who I knew, played on his softball team years ago, he, at the beginning of the Bush administration, George W. Bush's administration, he went to the Democrats and they got control of the Senate in around 2000. I think it was 2002, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So stranger things have happened. I don't think Turner's going to do that, but it means that he's not a reliable vote for the entire Trump program, because why would he bend to their will on some other issue if they did this to him?
Yeah, and they, like you said, they don't have the margin for that. So it does give us a hint of what we should do.
Yeah.
You're just not ready. Now, you sat in on this trial. Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felony charges on January 10th. He walked away with an unconditional discharge, meaning he will not face fines, prison, or any other penalties. You sat through the trial itself. I mean, and now he's going to be president. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have asked you, is that justice? I think you kind of felt like it was justice. Do you still feel that same way?
Well, yeah, I was in the courtroom every day. I was one of the only reporters who was there for all 23 days of the trial. And then for sentencing last Friday, I was there again. So it's not full justice. It's obviously very disappointing across, all these trials that are now being abandoned. I had originally been credentialed for the Jack Smith Washington trial, what I called the coup trial, about his efforts to overturn the election and basically stage a coup. So that trial's dead. Jack Smith has resigned. Mar-a-Lago case is dead. The Georgia case is on life support. So this was the only game in town. And from the start, I felt there was accountability, because Judge Merchan, who was a terrific judge, when he told, like the second day, he tells Mr. Trump, take your seat. And that was the first time since Donald Trump's father died like 35 years ago that he ever had to answer to anybody about anything.
Yeah.
And then that continued during the trial. And, he found him in contempt of court. Unfortunately, by law, he could only fine him $10,000. But when he was fining him, the judge said, and by the way, everybody else who was not in the courtroom, because it wasn't televised, they're just getting these messages in a bottle. Like it's not landing. This accountability is not landing because it wasn't on TV, right? But it was real accountability. And he says to Trump, who can't answer back, he can go outside the courtroom and attack anybody. But when he attacked the jury and when he attacked witnesses, he was held in contempt of court. It wasn't even the biggest story of the day. Imagine any other president being held in contempt of court. But that is a measure of justice and accountability. And what he said to him then was, if you reoffend, if you continue to attack witnesses or the jury, I will jail you. So what did Trump do? He cleaned up his act, not outside the courtroom, not as far as attacking the judge and his family and all the stuff, but anything that was covered by the gag order, he obeyed after that. All right, so then fast forward to you have the immunity decision, which after the verdict, by the way, the verdict was a tremendously inspirational form of justice and accountability. Just seeing that foreperson say guilty, guilty, guilty 34 times, one of the most moving and dramatic events of my professional life. And I've covered a lot over the last 40 years. So he's a convicted felon. And then because of the immunity decision, the judge had to delay sentencing. Now, some people say he didn't have to delay sentencing. I think he did. So he delayed it. And then in September, it would have been impossible and it would have blown up in Harris's face if he had sentenced him to jail in September. So he made a decision. He made a tough decision, which the prosecution agreed with, to put sentencing off until after the election. Then the prosecution suggested that he freeze the case and sentence him 4 years from now when Trump was out of office. And that was what the prosecution thought was the best effort. Actually, Mershon came up with a better solution, unconditional discharge. Now you go, why is that a better solution? Because under unconditional discharge, there's no probation. You can't haul the president into court. You basically can't do anything except make the idea that he's a convicted felon a life sentence.
Right.
And what he did was that was so brilliant. And what a judge, a very anti-Trump judge, retired judge, who I sat with in the court a lot of times, who was just observing, but he called a masterstroke. I quoted him in the New York Times calling a masterstroke.
Saw that.
When Chief Justice Roberts' decision came out just before sentencing, allowing sentencing to proceed, what he said in that decision is which was 5-4, close shave because of all the pro-Trumpsters on the Supreme Court. What he said was, because the judge is going to sentence him to unconditional discharge, this will not take up much of the president-elect's time or have conditions that could affect him when he's president. Basically, nobody thought it was practical for, when Donald Trump is in a National Security Council meeting, for a judge to say, you got to appear in court on this date. Yeah. It would be nice if life worked that way, but nobody thought that was practical, right? Yeah. Once he won the election, it was clear he was never going to go to jail. By the way, only a fifth of all defendants convicted for falsifying business records as a felony, as Trump was, go to jail. So because he was a first-time offender, he was never going to go to jail.
No, he's
contempt. He almost went to jail for contempt, but
right.
The best shot of getting him in the slammer. So it was always going to be some kind of probation at best. So for sacrificing probation, what Mershon got was a life sentence as a convicted felon, because these other grounds that they're going to appeal on, they could win, but I don't think they will. I think they're going to have and by the way, because of unconditional discharge, the Supreme Court's not even going to review appeals that Trump makes.
There's nothing you can say. Yeah.
He has a life sentence as a convicted felon. I think that's a measure of justice. There's stigma in that. And, it'll do. It's obviously not ideal. It's not even good, but it's the best we could have hoped for after the election. And I'm okay with it. It won't be in the second paragraph of his Breitbart obit, but it will be in the New York Times.
Now we only have a few minutes. So on that note, Joe Biden's handing power back to Trump again. What do you think of Joe Biden? You wrote a little bit in December about Joe Biden's political legacy. As we look at tomorrow, what do you finally see of Joe Biden's legacy as we head back to Trump again?
Well, I think his strengthening of NATO was really, really important and historic because when Trump tries to go after NATO and he's going to cut a deal with Putin and Ukraine, try to force it down Ukraine's throat, it's going to be a real blow to NATO. So it's very advantageous that we go into this terrible period with NATO stronger than it has been in decades. That's a huge accomplishment. Obviously, the chips and infrastructure, these are big domestic things, especially in the climate area. So nobody can ever take that away from him. And I think historians will look at him as a good one-term president, but not in the top rank of one-term presidents, because his big job, which was to get Donald Trump off the stage, he messed up. His ego got in the way. He clung to power. His wife helped him. And to me, that just tarnishes his legacy. And, the ancient Greeks said, know thyself. And there are a lot of Democrats, Dianne Feinstein and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who didn't get it. And the consequences in Ginsburg's case were serious, very, very serious. And the consequences in Biden's case could be extremely damaging to democracy.
Boy, yep, I agree. It's nice to hear that. That's the thing. I mean, in the end, he didn't quite take seriously. It felt like the threat of Trump in those first couple of years. By the time he recognized the threat, we were kind of late in the game, and Kamala never had time.
Yeah, Kamala didn't have time. So if he had done what I and a number of other people were urging him to do and just left it open, people go, well, who will win? That's what primaries are for. Somebody would have emerged. It could have been Kamala Harris. It could have been somebody else who had a better message in 2023 and early 2024. But we would have had a much stronger candidate. And I think the Democrats would have the White House now if Joe Biden had just understood that the idea of being president of the United States when he was 86 years old was preposterous. As anybody who saw his otherwise good farewell address, just looking at him, the idea 4 years from now, he thought he would be okay. Come on. And by the way, there's a lot of blame to go around on Democrats too. We attack Republicans rightly for them, humoring and kissing up to their leader. And Democrats didn't do it to the same extent, but they did it. They should have staged an intervention and sent everybody from Obama and Clinton and Jeffries and Pelosi to Stephen Breyer. That's what I wrote on my Substack. I did a fanciful intervention where Stephen Breyer says to Biden, look, you've been a great president. I thought I was a great Supreme Court justice, but I had to resign. I had to leave. I had to retire because for the good of the country. And you need to do the same thing. That didn't happen. And historians are going to be very hard on Democrats who didn't get it done. They didn't go and tell the truth to the president, which is that he was not the right candidate for 2024.
That sums it up right there. And here we are. So I guess all we can do now is, like we said, but there's a dent in democracy, and now we keep moving forward. John, I really appreciate your time coming on here. I know you got a busy schedule.
We didn't get to talk about Jimmy Carter because
I know we didn't get to talk about Jimmy Carter.
Like I hate to say this, I probably shouldn't say this, but because I was really sad and it was a loss for the country, even at age 100. But one of the great things is his send off. Was really I thought a wonderful thing, and it was partly a function of Trump that America needs a hero. And so and just in looking back on this, it's a little self-referential, but I'm really glad that I spent the better part of 5 years of my life telling this astonishing American epic, which is what the life of Jimmy Carter was.
It truly is, and not just his service as president, but his service to the nation afterwards. And I think that's what we talk about so much, right? What is your service? What is the definition of service? And in many ways, I mean, this is a Naval Academy grad, who served in the military, is a nuke guy, and then the presidency and the governor, then presidency, and then a life of service in a different way after. It's a remarkable story.
Yeah.
And we'll never forget it. So, well, let's have you back on. That's all we're gonna have to do, I guess.
Love to
That's all there's to it.
Yeah, great to be with you.
I can't wait. Thanks. Good seeing you.
Thanks, Fred.
Thank you. Man, what a great conversation, right? And, look, a little controversial. We have to have honest conversations. I know sometimes people get upset, but we do have to really look at where we're at and what we're doing. And obviously, as we face the next thing. But hey, the best part is we can't always be serious. That one of our biggest goals here at the show is just not just always talk about the news and things that are going on. There's a lot going on in our world. So I just want to talk about that a little bit. And the best part is we have great friends and family that will jump in. Now I'm going to tell you a story before we have our guest join us. Monique Coleman joined us this week. Amazing actress, philanthropist, award-winning. I mean, I was reading her awards list. It's incredible. Of course, started out in High School Musical. We broke into fame. I'll tell you about that, I'm sure. And then literally 15 minutes ago, our dear friend Charlotte Clymer texted right before we went live, said, "Hey, I'm sick." I'm like, "Oh, that's not good." And so in a frantic texting with everybody we know, Eliza Orlins jumped in. You can't beat this. So I'm thrilled to start the panel off. Let's go ahead and bring the panel in, JJ. Let's talk to our friends. Woohoo! Well, Monique, I've been so excited to meet you. Welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you. Eliza, I've been wanting to hang out with you forever. You guys, we have to frame this, okay? Literally 40 minutes ago, I'm like, oh shit. And I start, my friend Rena Shaw, Rena's been on the show. And then she goes, Eliza will do it. And then here you are. I mean, incredible. Right? So welcome to On Much is Sunday. We bring coffee. Although days like this, I'll probably start bringing bourbon, which is fine. Right? No, we don't judge here. It's a no judgment zone. Monique, incredible. I had to start off, Monique, and to give you perspective, my kids don't watch my show. I love my kids. They're all grown ass adults. It's, you get it. You have kids. I have like a bunch of kids that are older. And I said, yeah, you guys should watch the show this week. Because you know why? Because here on my phone, Monique, you'll see to this day, I still have the High School Musical soundtrack for my then 9-year-old daughter. Okay. Because my 9-year-old daughter was a giant fan and I had to download it for road trips. So nonetheless, my kids are watching the show this week because
so
Where are you coming from, Monique? Where are you at today? I don't know where you are in the country right now.
I know. I'm currently in Colorado. I'm looking at the most beautiful Rocky Mountains that are snow covered, and I'm snowed in, and it's great.
Our oldest is going to school out in Colorado. We just love it there. He just went back to school yesterday. It's a gorgeous time to be out there. Great place to be. And Eliza, you're in New York, I assume, the way you pulled this off.
I am. I'm in New York, and we're actually about to be snowed in. We're expecting 6 to 9 inches tonight. So,
oh my God, we'll talk about it. Well, it's great. And for those who don't know, Eliza's an American Public Defender. She's best known for appearances on Survivor and Amazing Race. So she's not just a legal eagle; she's also a star herself. So we got an all-star panel this week, literally. And of course, Monique, you started off with High School Musical, but you've done so much more than that. I mean, I was embarrassed to bring it up because you've had such a wonderful career, and you were just, I saw on your Instagram, you were at Union College for MLK Day, weren't you?
Yes, I was. Yeah, but what people don't know, just that you're speaking of, is that after High School Musical, I had this moment where I just realized that fame was never going to fill a certain space in me that service could. And so long story short, I was the first ever United Nations Youth Champion for the International Year of Youth. And I initiated and funded a 6-month global tour to understand what young people experience and face globally. And so every time you don't see me on screen, it's because I'm somewhere else, really just advocating on behalf of young people, on behalf of gender equity, and just really just doing my best to use my platform. Because yes, High School Musical is my legacy and I'm so grateful for it. And I love that because it's created this entryway for conversation and for people to know who I am. But that's such a small fraction. It's literally just the doorway to my soul, because I think that I was put on this planet to try to make a difference for young people.
And I've loved watching you speak. I have followed you, and I followed you. Picked up again and caught up. You talk about your journey to joy, and I think a lot of us of a certain age, 40s, 50s. I'm
Yeah.
much older than that. We'll just leave that at that. There may be grandkids. We're not gonna. But having said that, it is. You go to a certain. I think a lot of us start off in a certain way. Eliza, you went to law school. I was in the Army, and as you progress in life, you find yourself in very different places. Eliza, you ended up on Survivor. I imagine that was life changing. Right? I mean, you've gone through a journey yourself, haven't you?
Definitely. I mean, watching the show as a teenager with my family, I turned to my mom watching the first episode of the first season, and I was like, I'm going to be on that show one day. And she said, of course you are, sweetheart. You can do anything. And now she says, be careful what you tell your kids because they believe you. And I applied for the show as soon as I turned 21 and got cast while I was in college, but it didn't derail my plans, which were to go to college, to go to law school, to become a public defender. And so, being invited to be on the show was something like Monique was saying, where it gave me this platform, this opportunity to then have people look to me, and I got to spread the message of, hey, let me shine a light on the injustices that occur in our criminal legal system. Let's talk about the ways in which you can protect yourself from the police. This is like the important thing that I have to spread this message, and having a platform because people have seen me on reality television is a privilege.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And that's exactly right. It's funny how often I'm not anywhere. I was an old Army officer. So you guys started off much stronger than I did. I've only recently become, people sick of me already, but it is. Yeah, I think you reach a certain point, you kind of feel a duty. It's like, okay, I've got this weird platform. I'm one of those classic social media guys. I did things, and then I got involved in politics with the Lincoln Project, and people kind of knew who I was at that point. But I've always sort of felt a pressure, like, well, I've got this giant platform. I've got to be able to use it some way. I don't know why so many people want to follow me, but if we don't use it for good, then what's the point of all this, right? I mean, I think that's
literally.
And Monique, did I hear you were in LA recently too? I mean, during the fire?
Yes. Yeah. So I was in LA during the fires. Which obviously is just beyond. It's incomprehensible what's happening. And at the same time, I will say that it is so incredible to see the amount of people that are coming together in a way that I don't think people really understood or expected. I really feel like LA gets such a bad rap, and it sort of is seen as this place that's dark and ugly and all these things. And I said, I don't really feel that way. I think that LA is full of a lot of broken light workers, a lot of people who came with a dream and a desire to do something good. And maybe, somewhere along the way, there is that darkness, but there's so much more light in that place. And it was a very scary week. And it's still, things people are going to be recovering for a very, 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 very long time. But I really do, to see the way that people are mobilizing it's awe-inspiring. And it's going to be so interesting to just see how this is going to shape humanity, honestly, because so much of our culture also comes from the entertainment industry. And now with the entertainment industry being completely crippled, and all this reorganization and restructuring, and then everything that's happening, in the coming days and so forth. Yeah, it's wild.
It's a lot. One of our first guests was Heather Thomas, a wonderful actress herself, and big time activist and advocate. And then she's got a beautiful home there. And Heather and I were texting all week, tracking just how close the fires got to her house, her daughter's houses. Morgan Fairchild's become a friend.
Everyone knows something.
Everyone knows. So Morgan left. Morgan, of course, has bad lung. Morgan's always had Morgan had to leave town. She's in Palm Springs. I mean, it's really, it's everybody. Everybody was reduced to whatever they can be. So it's well, I'm so glad you survived.
I was planning to be here anyway, but then I decided to stay because I thought this is a better place to be at the moment.
Great. So, and you're gonna get some snow, Eliza. Great, which New York needs. And what are you hot? What's your? I mean, obviously, we'll probably bring the panel picks up here in a second, but you've got a lot cooking right now, Eliza, don't you? I mean, with your day work. I heard you backstage. So for those who understand how this works, is when I'm on camera, there's a backstage, and everybody's talking. I can hear him, and you're like, oh, hey, Judge Merchant, I know him. How do you know Judge Merchant?
So I have been a public defender in Manhattan for 15 years, and Judge Merchant is a judge who I've appeared in front of many, many times for, the last decade or so. And so, being in court and getting to know him and being there and being able to provide and shine a light on what's going on in the criminal legal system, especially when cases are brought in Manhattan, I think is something that is unique, because this is a courthouse that I've appeared in front of, it's where I go to work every day. So it's
just a place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jonathan sat in every day of the trial and kind of witnessed it. And he felt very strong. And not to get too serious, because try to keep it light. Jonathan actually felt there was justice and all that, that there was a justice. You may feel different as a public defender. I mean, did you feel like there was justice served, or?
I think that I just wish that all of my clients received the same treatment that Donald Trump received as a defendant. If my clients all got, and there were all these people advocating for harsher treatment of Donald Trump. And I said, no, you all are missing the point here. We don't want him to actually be treated more harshly. We just want that treatment for everyone who is subjected to a criminal prosecution, because that would be, elevating it for, the predominantly poor Black and brown people that I represent in this city. So really, I think the misunderstanding of justice is that it's really kind of only applied in a selective way. I don't even call it the justice system. I say the criminal legal system, because it's not justice for all. It's justice for those with wealth, with power, with privilege.
Yep. And I saw you talk about that a lot this week. I thought it was great, again, using your platform to highlight that this is the system, and to see someone as powerful as Donald Trump sitting in there. But you're right, gets the special treatment, got to walked away. The kid, the comment, oh, well, he's too old to go to jail. I imagine you have a lot of clients that don't get that kind of grace, do they?
No, but also, they should.
Yeah, that's the point. And the point, if we don't want clogged jails, we need a equal justice system for everybody. And it starts there. Well, and I know you're both passionate about that topic. But hey, look, we got to do the thing, as I warned you both, and I tipped you off, but that's okay. All right, JJ, it's time. And Monique, since she had to flee fires, you get to go first. Well, maybe no, yeah. All right, I know these are hard picks. I know a lot of them aren't familiar to you. Monique, you're up.
Let's talk TikTok.
Okay, I love it. There you go. I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to avoid it. We may never get to it. You're big on TikTok, aren't you, Eliza? Did you have a pretty big following on TikTok? You too. Monique? Are you?
Yes and no. I'm technically on TikTok, but I don't actually use TikTok really.
Okay.
But I just wanted to mention it because I've been kind of annoyed with the passion about TikTok's leaving. Until I put it in perspective and until it actually happened. Because when it actually happened, it really made it so clear that anything is truly possible. And so if it is possible to ban an app, why is it not possible to ban assault rifles? Why is it not possible to get clean water to Flint, to do so many things that are infinitely more important than worrying about a social media app? And so that's the only reason why I wanted to bring that up, is because I actually am not a big, I have a social media presence, but I really do my best to use it more as a tool, a way to communicate, to spread a message, to elevate my career, to pivot in different directions. And I'm worried about the younger generation and their attachment to this as a form of distraction, as a just in that regard. But on a political standpoint, the fact that we were this was actually able to happen, and that so many other things that are far more important weren't able to happen, that is the only reason why I wanted to talk about that, because I think that's just really trash.
I mean, and it's amazing how many people really made a living on it. I mean, I have dear friends.
Yes.
Eliza, I don't know if you were DNC, weren't you, Eliza? I don't know if you did.
I wasn't there, but
you were not.
posted about it and went to a lot of things subsequently, and
Wow.
and I've become quite close with a lot of TikTok creators. I actually went to DC to lobby against this vote in Congress back in March of last year, to try to convince members of Congress that this was a First Amendment problem, that this was truly an issue that it wasn't about national security. There was no evidence of any national security threat. This was something that was a slippery slope when it comes to freedom of expression, when it comes to the economic livelihood. There's 7 million small businesses on there. There are 170 million Americans using this app. This isn't about just losing an app or a distraction platform or silly dances. This is truly a digital space for storytelling, for education, for community, and for people's livelihoods, people's businesses. So this ripple effect has been massive, even just if it's shut down for 36 hours. You know, the scary thing is the government regulating speech in this way, speech that it doesn't like. And it's a question of what platform will be targeted next. What does this mean for free expression online? You know, the fight for digital freedom, I think, continues. And I've been deeply, deeply disturbed by this TikTok ban.
Yeah. And if the issue is data, Jesus, I mean, we know these other guys are taking more data. You know, it is, it's almost like it's more xenophobic than anything else in a lot
Absolutely.
of ways. Like,
I completely agree.
It's terrifying. Well, all right, next. Eliza, you up because you jumped in. JJ, bring him up.
All right, let's talk. Hell freezes over.
Excellent. You're getting 9 inches of snow, but really, and how about DC? I don't know if God stepped in to kind of, because of low hotel turnout. What do you guys think? I mean, we were laughing about there's a huge, if you don't know, Monique, there's a huge cold front going through DC, and so they've moved the inauguration indoors, and I'm in St. Louis, y'all, and it's
I had no idea what
minus freaking 5. Yeah.
It's going to be really cold, but this certainly isn't the coldest inauguration in history. A lot of friends were at Obama's 2009 inauguration. It was freezing cold. There have been lots of other cold inaugurations. I think that there was something else at play here. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but people donated, people bought tickets to inauguration. You know, now Trump gets to pocket that money and use it for whatever else he wants. No one's getting refunds. And so I think that there is a lot more to it. And I think a lot of people were hoping for a William Henry Harrison situation, that Trump would be, too masculine.
For perspective, for those who don't know, who are students of history, William Henry Harrison died when he got sick from his inauguration speech in the cold and passed away. Was it 2 weeks? I think it was. Wasn't Monique? I knew you were wondering. It's one of those obscure history things you pick up. But yeah, everybody's been talking about it. Oh man, that'd be amazing. But I am a peaceful man. I don't wish ill upon many people. I do wish ill on a few people, but yeah. How cold is it in Colorado? Because our oldest just went back to college.
Cold. It is next level cold. Like I looked on the thing yesterday and it was like, it said that it felt like it was below 3. And I was like, yeah, that feels okay. That feels really true. But it's also just really beautiful though. So that balances it out. But yeah,
we're in St. Louis. I'm in St. Louis and it's super cold. And we got a puppy over Christmas for reasons. I'm not going to get into that. And of course, she's right at that age. She's like, she got to pee every 5 minutes. And it is nightmare feel. Took her out this morning. It's wind chill, -5. There's stuff. And she spent 5 minutes freaking staring at a leaf blowing down the street. I'm like, will you just poop? I just want you to poop. And begging a puppy to poop in the cold is the greatest waste of time on earth. It's like, like begging and preaching to their
homework. Doesn't want to go outside. And you're like, please just go outside.
Just go. Just no. But she does want to go out, but she wants to look at the leaves blowing down the street. Anyway, I've been using my back surgery excuse, and don't tell Heather. I hope she's not. Oh, she is watching. That I'm not actually sick as she thinks. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, so that's hell freezing over. All right, JJ, bring them up. Monique, back to you.
We got to go there. High School Musical. We're going for your kids, Fred.
Yes, that's it. It's not me, because I am a mature adult.
It's for your kids.
And I got to tell you, sister, when that came out, I was like an Army Ranger, tough guy, combat veteran. So I hated it. No, I'd be lying. It was great. The kids are always playing it. I mean, what a wonderful way to burst into the scene. And your character, of course, is just a great character, and it clearly changed your life, didn't it? I mean, what a direction it gave you, huh?
Absolutely, it changed all of our lives, and I feel like it also is kind of like the cornerstone of a very specific time in Disney history and on the Disney Channel. Yeah. And it launched some really incredible careers, obviously. I mean, mine, Zach and Vanessa, Ashley Corbin, Lucas. We all, and what's so beautiful is that we're all, I mean, not to be like, but we're all good people. But it's just true. And I think that Disney, are these platforms for young people, there was just a time where it felt like we were trying to build people up and tear them down. And I feel really lucky to be a part of a project that doesn't have that particular undertone to it, that, it really, it's something that has continued to it didn't just exist in a time, it has continued to evolve over time. And it has a message in it that is so important, I think, for multiple generations. Because when you look back on Grease, the message is kind of like change everything about yourself so that someone likes you. The message of High School Musical is that you can be all the things that you are, and that they are not, that they do not have to contradict one another, that you can sing and play basketball and be the science nerd,
Yes.
that anything that you
Yes.
want to be matters. And so, you know, even when Amanda Gorman was doing the inaugural poem, I remember looking at her and thinking, wow, we did Girl Up together, you know, which is a UN Foundation campaign for, you
Wow.
know, gender equity. And I was thinking how interesting that when she was a little girl, when I was a little girl, I didn't see people on television that looked like me and spoke like me and were like me. But when
Yeah.
she was a little girl, she saw me, and she saw me say that I was going to be the president of the United States of America. And knowing that that's something that she desires, my mom literally called me and she was just like, Mo, I just hope that you see a little part of yourself in what is happening right now. And I was like, I mean, and she was like, no, but really. And I thought about it and I said, wow, like, you know, entertainment, it has such a big place in shaping culture and shaping not just culture, but the minds of young people. And so getting to be a part of something that has shaped the minds of young people in a way that I can be proud of and that we all can be proud of. And also as a Black woman who grew up with very stereotypical roles as role models, to portray this character before the Obamas, from what I understand, the night of their inauguration, their kids watch High School Musical in cars. Isn't that crazy?
It's amazing because people forget your character was amazing. She was the power woman of that
High School
show. Yeah.
Musical. So yeah.
I love it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to hear. So, I mean, again, Eliza, you reflect that. You like with Survivor. I mean, there you see these things as a child, and you move on. You got to remember this old. I'm not gonna tell you what I grew up with. We're just not going there. There may have been black and white shows, but we're just leave it at that. You know, it's you know, but no, it is the power of seeing people who look like the people, the power of seeing a very uplifting show. I mean, every joke's about, you know, obviously it's corny as hell because it's a Disney movie. Let's not be silly, but it was a positive one, and we did jam out in the oh man, I had a minivan then. Woo!
But also, Eliza, like, I just want to say, like, you are such a badass. Like, I'm so happy that I got to spend this time with you.
Back at you.
I was literally like, what is
My daughter's
happening?
texting me. My daughter's like, wait, that's Eliza from Survivor.
Yeah. Well, you know what's so funny is right now, so during the pandemic, Survivor had like a real resurgence. So I was on the show. I mean, this was a very long time ago. As I said, it was when I was 21, which was now over 2 decades ago. Oh my God. But it had a huge resurgence. And during the pandemic, something about watching Survivor became like a huge thing. So I have all these kids who were maybe like 3 years old when I was on television, who are now huge fans, but then they look me up online and they get to see, you know, what I became. And it said, like, they called me pre-law student. And then my second time on, when they invited me back for Fans versus Favorites, it said law student. And they were like, oh my God, you graduated law school, you became a public defender, you ran for office. And they get to see what I'm putting out. And I'm so proud that people who admire me on a TV show and my resilience and my grit and, you know, being the little scrappy underdog that I was, then they get to look me up online and see that I've built this social media following where I use my platform for good and to kind of spread a message of shining light on injustices and having people understand, like, you know, oh, I shouldn't talk to the police. I should always ask for my lawyer. You know, like the messages that I'm trying to put out there are ones that I can feel really proud of. And I have so many people reach out and say, Eliza, you inspired me to go to law school. I just graduated. I became a public defender because of you, all these things. And it means so much. That means the world.
It's so easy to be cynical. Exactly. It's so easy to be cynical, you guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just to jump in on that. That's just that I have a very similar experience where I have so many people who say, I didn't think I could do it until I saw someone do it. And yeah, anyway, I just wanted to just
I got nothing, you know, I mean, and that's the thing. It's easy to be cynical. You know, everybody's been joking about let's start with the fires in LA. Oh, celebrities but these platforms that allow us that people, you two especially, you're such perfect examples of, look, you know me this way, but there's more to it. And there's the darker sides. I was kind of railing today because I've been salty this week. I had back surgery 3 years ago. and sometimes it's the dark part where you block somebody on a social media channel, and they literally, some guy messaged my daughter on Facebook like, oh, you're broken like your dad's. Like, geez, what is wrong with people? But they forget that so many people like you guys have been given these opportunities, and you're capitalizing them for the good of us, the good of all. And it's funny that thematic, and it worked out here with the three of you. It's, God, Eliza, you're saving grace again. But one of the things I've been writing a lot about in my writings and in my my shows is, look, we just can't be dour and down. There's some tough times ahead, but some of the funniest people you'll ever meet are soldiers in combat, right? I used to joke, there's a famous photo of the soldiers going across this bridge in Baghdad. This is the 3rd Infantry Division during the invasion of Iraq. We won't talk about war, but I used to joke all the time that I guarantee right before they invaded that bridge, one of the guys like, dude, get a picture of me. This is bad. Because it's like there's that humor, and if we can't have some humor in the trenches of what we face, then we're going to lose it all. And then also doing something positive with it. Right. And it's like, we can do, and that's you guys. There's so much more in this country, and democracy, whatever you want to call democracy, is called shows. This network's called On Democracy, but democracy is this. It is being part of youth advocacy, is part of helping our underprivileged Americans who are being brutally treated by the justice system. That is all part and parcel of being part of democracy. And every single day I get messages on social media saying, Fred, I hear you say we got to do our part, but what can I do? And I'm like, well, let me give you a list. And then I got you guys on the show. It's like, you can. And I tell them, maybe you guys would, I say, start your little square here and start there. Right. And then go from there. That's probably where you guys are at. Right.
Exactly. And I say this all the time, that hope is a discipline. And so you have to wake up every day and say, okay, what little action can I take to keep fighting? People have accused me of being a relentless optimist. And I think it's an apt description, because you can't be a public defender for 15 years if you don't believe that you can actually do good in the world and make a difference. And so, yes, taking little actions, but still, by the way, I am mad about everything all the time. So I don't think that you have to, I channel my rage, but I'm fueled by rage at injustice. Like that is what I use to push me forward. But I don't think that there's anything wrong with trying to also find joy and to bring humor. I mean, I have the most gallows humor. You think soldiers are bad? Like, try public defenders. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear
that. Yeah.
And I'll just
I get it.
that. Oh, go ahead.
No,
I was
please.
just going to add that where our attention goes, our energy flows. And so I'm also going to adopt that. I am also a relentless optimist. But it isn't because of what I haven't been through or my naivete. It's because of what I have been, in the fact that I still choose to be positive. I still choose to be joyful in the face of everything that I've seen. I have traveled to over 45 countries, and I've seen all kinds of horrific things, and I still wake up every day and I decide that it's where I decide to put my energy. Just speaking of the fires, we can either look at what's burning, or we can look at what we can do to put it out. And that's, I think, we're always looking for the helpers, as Fred Rogers says.
Man, you guys are making me so happy. This is like the best show ever. Because that's I'm the same way.
You say that to everyone.
No, I don't. JJ can confirm that. I'm actually a very cynical, kind of an asshole. No, it is. You can tell. No, it is that relentless optimism, and I love that terminology. It is. People sit me all the time. It's like, look, I've been to war many times. I've lost friends and family. I've written about my post-traumatic, my PTSD. I don't hide that. But by same token, okay, we still have to move forward. You can either follow what happened to you, or you can learn from it, move forward. And that goes for the three of us, say, in our personal lives, but it also goes for our nation. Like I said, On Democracy is the name for a reason. Like, we are going to have to find ways to come together and work together. And if we keep dividing, then we won't have anything to add. And I'm an addition guy. Like, I'm a very simple man. I write because I can't do math. Add and subtract's all I got, y'all. And I think we should be adding more people. I think we got one more pick. We're going to go long. I don't care. I'm having too much fun, and Alex Vindman can join us. All right. So last one, I guess it is SNL 50. Why? I was watching Chappelle last night. Did you guys catch Chappelle's monologue?
No.
I was nervous. As you know, Dave can be a little controversial sometimes. And he literally opened up saying, I'm trying to be less controversial. In classic Chappelle's like, I'm trying to be less controversial. The smile, that Chappelle smile, he's smoking a cigarette on stage. But it was hilarious, to be honest. It was funny, and his bits about California and everything else were actually pretty good. cleanish, which is rare, but it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've watched that show since I was a kid. I'm older than all of you. I'm probably the only guy who's over 50 that is a lot older than the show. But you grow up with it. I want to. Did that ever inspire you? Did you watch as a kid, Monique? Or
Absolutely. I
you
was
did?
I definitely watched SNL. I haven't watched it as much recently, but I definitely grew up with Will Ferrell, with oh my gosh, I'm like, I don't know their names, but the
Anna
I can't even-
Gasteyer.
Oh yeah.
Huh?
Anna Gasteyer.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, they're
Yes.
so funny.
Yeah.
Kristen Wiig, obviously, Maya
Yeah.
Rudolph. It really birthed so many people, and just to your point earlier, I think that humor is such an important part of culture, and it's like finding that balance between being able to laugh at ourselves, more than being able to laugh at other people, because
Yeah.
this generation has also shown us that I look back and there's some things that were a little bit controversial, like Pat, for instance. There was a character where when I look back on those episodes, I'm actually kind of upset about it because
Well, there's still platforming Dave Chappelle, who is a noted
Right.
transphobe. So I don't think anything has changed in that regard. But
There's that.
sorry, not to
They had Elon
but-
Musk. They had Elon Musk on last week or last
and
season.
Elon Musk,
Yeah.
it's like
Donald
yeah,
Trump.
there's
they're still
Yeah.
controversial.
Yeah.
I think it's a fine, it's a line to tote when it comes to like what is actually funny and why is it funny, and is it funny to relieve our pain, or does it actually inflict more pain? And I think that's when I look at 50 years of a comedy show, that's what comes to my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I get
Yeah.
it. It is a legacy of again, you were talking earlier about the amazing folks who've launched from High School Musical. I mean, the talent that's come out of SNL all these years, and you're constantly amazed. And I'm old enough because of watching for 50 years. I'm old enough to remember everybody saying, "Oh, it was better in X time." It's like everybody's got, you know what I mean? It's like, do you know what I mean? It's always, oh well, when I was a kid, it was better. This, when these, it's like, okay. Well, they all have their, I'm a pretty easy guy, and I've discovered a lot of musical talent thanks to them that I'd never heard of otherwise. So
True.
it's and when an artist goes on there and they nail it, it's my, I don't know if you like Brandy Carlisle. Brandy Carlisle went on there and it moves you. I saw her live here in St. Louis last summer. I mean, what an artist! My God, what an artist she is! It's just amazing. Our Jelly Roll was on there a couple weeks ago, and he can move you to tears. And it's a really remarkable platform. Like you said, with controversy or not, it is a pretty remarkable platform.
Absolutely,
So,
and I think
for anything to laugh.
Yeah, and the people who've been on who have, some of the most iconic lines that people just quote constantly are from the show, that started from skits on the show or characters who originated on the show. A favorite of mine will always be the SNL, parody of Celebrity Jeopardy, with Sean Connery and Burt Reynolds, the turd Ferguson.
Oh my God!
I'll take Swords for $500. I'll take The Rapist, when it's therapist. Or I'll take the penis mightier. Remember, and it's the pen is mightier, and I'll take the penis mightier.
I know, it's amazing,
and definitely like some of the most impressive are some of the artists who also do the hosting and who are truly comedically geniuses, who also have these like just phenomenal singing voices, like Taylor Swift and Ariana Grande, who have this just like unbelievable, unmatched talent. If you hear Seth Meyers tell the story of how Taylor Swift's SNL monologue came about, she wrote that song. They had written her a monologue, and she came in and was like, "Actually, I'm going to pitch you a song that I wrote for myself," and it was so perfect, so on point, so funny, and just amazing. I mean, I'm obviously a huge Swiftie, so she can go wrong in my eyes, but I loved that, and that was 15 years ago.
I mean, that's the thing, and that's why I keep going back. I think. I mean, obviously, the luxury of now that we've mentioned once again my age, this has come up multiple times in the show, which is fine. Often I do catch it the next morning on clips, but yeah, it is still making a difference, and I love it. It is. I just love the show. I just do. And you're right. The controversy is one thing, and we can have the protest, but you have to just sit back and marvel at a show in this day and age, you guys, right? You know how Monique, I know you've had shows come and go. It's the nature of your business, right? Survivor's another example, of course, but these shows that have just resiliently held on, and Grey's Anatomies, it's like you have to just really, in a time of people losing interest in things very quickly, the talent that's been able to keep something going for 50 years in this day and age is amazing. And so it's kind of hard not to just kind of take a pause. So we've gone over time because I just wanted to keep talking. Alex is in the green room. This has just been lovely, Monique. I know you fit us in, and now you're stuck. I'm going to call on you again, and if you can do anything here, need help. Tell us what you're up to these days. What's next? Where should people look for you next? I mean, plug. Go ahead. What are you up to these days?
I'm not sure when it's going to come out, but I'm starring and executive producing a film for Lifetime called Trapped in the Spotlight. So please look out for that. I'm really excited about it. It was my first time sort of getting to flex that hat and being given the opportunity to show up as an executive producer, not just in name, but in, being able to contribute creatively, which was really exciting. And the other thing is that for those who don't know, I started figure skating 2 years ago, and I'm coming up.
I saw that on Instagram. I should have put skating in. I saw that on Instagram.
Yeah, I've become a figure skater at 40. Well, I started at 42. At 44 years old, I'm like, I'm doing this. And so I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary, and I think I want to do like a little performance or something. So that's another thing you can look out for.
All right, I'll be looking for it. I'm going to put my alerts on Instagram because I want to see that. I grew up on skates here in Missouri. Again, it's icy in Missouri, cool. And I grew up in the last ice age. And it was still really cold here. And we had outdoor rink. And I was actually, you'll laugh, I was locally famous because at 2, I started a skating show here. I was on the city calendar. I know you guys are celebrities, but I was on the Kirkwood city calendar because I was skating at 2. Nonetheless, Eliza, what are you up to these days? What's next? Where can people find you with the TikTok ban, which is probably gonna be lifted in the next 24 hours?
Yeah, I think I'll be back on TikTok. Hopefully all 210,000 people who were following me there come back with me. But Eliza Orlins, just my full name there. Orlins on Instagram and Threads. Eliza Orlins on Blue Sky. I can be found truly everywhere. And my YouTube channel is at eliza.orlins, which I'm working on putting on more long form content soon. So would love for folks to join me there. And also, I'm going to stay on for your next guest. I love Alex. And I think it's like Rachel is in the audience as well. So thanks for having me on today. I'm glad I got this opportunity with Charlotte. What
a random way for this to come together too. We all were just kind of shuffled in at this moment, but it really feels like it was totally destined. And I'm so excited to have met you both, honestly. And I look forward to staying in touch.
I know, on a dark weekend, with a lot of
and that's the whole point of this, right? It's like we're going to have to. Yeah. Well, look, we're going to have to laugh at all of this.
But MLK
you can take it very seriously.
So let's not forget about that.
Tomorrow's gonna be a nightmare. I'm not watching any of that crap. I'm just telling you right now. No, just say no. I'm not watching it. I'm going to do something healthy. I don't know what it is. Eliza, thanks for diving on this so quickly. Just incredible. I mean, 40 minutes to airtime and you're here. So thank you. Monique, be safe in Colorado. Don't slip on the ice. And thank you. And congratulations on everything you're doing. Both of you, so thrilled for the work you're doing and you're making a difference in the world. And it's a privilege to know you. So thanks for joining the show. We'll see you guys soon.
See you soon.
You will. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Man, I love this show. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. I'm just doing this for fun. Me and JJ just do it for fun. Katie. Hey, look, we have a little sponsor. We have a great sponsor, Constituent Connection. You may have heard of them already from the show. If you're thinking about running for office or launching a campaign in your local region, let Constituent Connection help you get your campaign running, provide you the key tools proven to help you win. Anyone who's worked in politics will tell you that data is one of the most important tools to have. It's also the hardest to afford for small campaigns. Constituent Connection provides a full suite of data, campaign tools for any size campaign. They're built for the local level, enable campaigns to use every dollar to their fullest extent. You can talk to real people, build your base, and our tools are built to actually save our democracy and not just make people rich. There are 3 key tools that any campaign needs: affordable email, best-in-class texting, and a voter relationship management tool. Constituent Connection has all those and has helped candidates for Congress and school board win. Our data has been used to help get petition signatures safely and quickly, precisely targeting the right homes in an area, leveraging both commercial data and voter rolls. So the mission of Constituent Connection is simple: to make campaigns more efficient, effective, and competitive while doing it at an affordable rate. So I'm proud to work the Constituent Connection to help campaigns of any size. I hope you'll check out their website. That's more. You can find out more at constituentconnection.com. You can even set up a meeting with me at constituentconnection.com. I'm happy to talk to you about it. That's constituentconnection.com. Constituent Connection is your first call for campaign success. So on with the show, man. It has been fun. I talk about every week how I enjoy having my friends on the show, and I don't hide stuff from you guys. Okay, at 9 o'clock last night, while Alex Vindman was on a boat, I was texting his wife because I got the in, and him, and said, "Hey, want to be a guest on the show?" Because we had it under cancellation. That's live TV for you. So nonetheless, you may have heard of this guy. My friend Alex Vindman is a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, like myself, served on the National Security Council, which you may have heard about a bit in the news at the time. Since then, he's written a best-selling book and works extensively in national security and advocacy for Ukraine and globally, and veterans and military families and all these things. So welcome to the show, my friend Alex. I mean, look how fancy we've gotten, Alex.
You guys have gotten really fancy. To Monique and Eliza, if they're still on, appreciate the kind words. You got cool friends. I don't know. I don't rate in that category of coolness, but
let's not bear down the details. You're kind of cool in certain places. Yeah. It's good. That's what matters. Hey, look, we do need to get to some serious things. I mean, obviously, thank you enough for joining us. I know you're in Florida. You're hanging out on a boat last night. I don't know. I've heard you have a history with Donald Trump. As we look at the inaugurations tomorrow morning, I know you and I both have had a history with him. How are you? I mean, let's just start there. How are you feeling right now? I mean, is there anything keeping you up at night?
Yeah. So first, let me say it sounds cooler than it was. It was cool, but it was Vietnam era military guys, an Air Force guy, 2 Navy guys, a Marine that invited me on the boat to talk about democracy and stuff like that. It was good stuff. What am I thinking about? Frankly, for since November 5th to really relatively recently, probably until Eugene's swearing in on the 3rd, I went into a meditative state to preserve my mental well-being and unplugged and kind of just reflected on the challenges ahead. I think lots of folks did that. I did that mindfully, recognizing that a lot of the stuff that was going on in Biden's lame duck period in Trump's ramp up was noise, and that the fights are ahead. We're now kind of in it. We're getting ready for it. Confirmation hearings started this past week, so a lot of people ask me about what I expect with regards to personal costs and retaliation, but that's not really where my headspace is right now. I'm thinking about national security. I'm thinking about the well-being of the country and the challenges we face. I've been writing fairly extensively on it. We maybe about the same time we were on last time. In September, I wrote a dark article about what the Russia-Ukraine war could look like, what the geopolitical landscape could look like, on the thought that we would have a Harris administration, but spent quite a bit of time talking about Trump, what would happen, the headwinds for peace, the way that would inspire authoritarian regimes, facilitate a slide towards a liberalism. And unfortunately, that's where we are. We're in for some significant challenges. So I'm worried about that. I've been already kind of dragged into the back into kind of the MAGA crosshairs, whether it's Elon Musk piping up and calling me a traitor and telling me I'll get what I deserve or something, or on the policy side, Mike Waltz using me to justify the firing of all of the professional staff on day one on the National Security Council.
And let's talk about that, Alex. I'll jump in. I really did want to talk about that because, one of the things we try to do here in the show, and you've been on my other show before, is, a lot of people may not know the nuances of what you and I deal with, or like our previous guests deal with, Jonathan or Monique or anybody. But that story kind of went on the radar. And I'm sure the average American's like, okay, they're going to fire a bunch of people. Who cares, right? I mean, we kind of thought so. But when you're talking, then what exactly we talk? We're talking civil servants or people who are what they call detailees, right? So can you explain to folks who may not understand what we're talking about? Why is that so significant and chilling, if you will?
I'm going to mention 2 things that probably flew under the radar. One that's about to be implemented, one that just is actually carried out. the Congress, in the closing days of the 118th Congress, defunded the Global Engagement Center, which was a part of the State Department focused on foreign disinformation, foreign misinformation, countering foreign powers, Russian attacks against us, to a certain extent domestically, but mainly overseas. Congress defunded it. So we don't have a tool to contend with that. That's something I haven't written about, but I worked with the GEC. Was it flawed? Yes. Did it fulfill its full mandate? No. But it was an important element with career professionals there, and it's gone. So one less tool to fight off our adversaries. Again, foreign oriented mainly on the foreign landscape as part of the State Department. And the second one, the hammer is about to fall. We'll see if it's maximally with all of the career folks being fired. To understand what's going on, the National Security Council is staffed by a mix of politicals coming out of Trump's circle and career civil servants. The vast majority are actually career civil servants. They're coming out of defense. They're coming out of the uniformed ranks, out of the intelligence community. They're coming out of the State Department. The backbone for the White House, what's called the Situation Room, are professional folks coming out of departments and agencies to run the 24-hour watch center. And what Wallace has indicated is that he wants to politicize that. He wants to fire all the folks there and replace them with political hacks. Why? For two reasons. One is, the superficial and frankly less important line is doesn't want Biden holdovers, but that's not really the real story. The real story is he wants to bring in folks that are 100% loyal. And when he called me out, he wants to avoid a situation in which folks that swore an oath to the Constitution will not be there to hold the line when the president engages in corruption, in criminal activity. And it's a deeply disturbing activity for a couple of different reasons. One is that the opening days of this administration are going to be chaotic. It's a transition period. It's always going to be chaotic.
Right.
And the National Security Council is a way to ease that transition by having these career folks that are apolitical, nonpartisan in those roles to operate across different administrations, without care for who's in office. That's not going to happen. That's a lot of opportunity for accident and miscalculation in crisis for our enemies to take advantage. And frankly, the long-term effects are this would become a political body with regular, what should I say, gaps in transition, because then the next administration that comes in, if it's
Right.
Democratic, will have to fire all the politicals from the outgoing Trump administration. That's another period of chaos. And if we continue that cycle, then basically we have inefficient transitions and real dangers in the opening days as new administrations come in. So it's a dangerous precedent. And I wasn't going to take it lying down, so I responded on the merits. Anyway.
Well, it's important though. I mean, I think it's for people to understand. Like when you were there, you were a detailee from the Pentagon. You weren't assigned to the Pentagon. There, that you went there because that was your place of assignment in the United States military as an officer with 20 plus years of service. So with your brother, who's now a congressman, which is awesome. Though the idea that becomes political, that's such a blatant politicalization of the military. The ironic part is seeing a guy like Pete Hegseth in that ridiculous confirmation hearing saying, "Oh yeah, the military's been politicized, so we're going to stop doing that." You're literally promising to politicize the military, and that is their very first act they announced was exactly that, wasn't it? We are going to politicize the military.
Yeah. Well, so what's funny is they're concerned about career apolitical personnel, but really they're taking the most partisan actors, the most extreme actors, and bringing them into this administration. That's really the story. And I think this is part of the smoke and mirrors of the way Trump operates anyway.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Now, another thing happened this week that I'd love to chat about, and it has significant effect for, obviously, you've been involved in Ukraine. You're from Ukraine. Mike Turner was, I talked a little bit with Jonathan Alter about it or in the show. Mike Turner was removed from the chairmanship of the House Intel Committee. And not just, he was, I think the term is defenestration we use. I mean, he was pulled not just from that chairmanship, but literally from the committee even. And he, of course, was a strong proponent for Ukraine. I know Jonathan talked about that's sort of a chilling message. Are you seeing that chilling message yourself from your work overseas?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I think in this, I think let's talk about the U.S. context. The president, incoming president Trump, has captured all of the branches of government. The Supreme Court is MAGA leaning, Senate and House is MAGA leaning, executive branch is about to be taken over. And what he's signaling is that there will be no tolerance for any of those checks and balances that were brought into our system to ensure that there is not an abuse of power by one or another branch. Overseas, we're seeing some things, interesting things play out. There's a decision being made by administrations, and each one will be kind of making their own call on whether to resist or comply with the incoming Trump administration. And I think in the first term, 2016, there were a lot of resist on principles, on democratic values. I don't know if we're going to see as much of that this time around. I think part of that is the government changes and a shift to the right. And I think the fact is, the belief is that the Trump administration is going to be largely unconstrained and highly erratic and could do all sorts of crazy things, like declaring that we're going to seize Greenland from Denmark, one of our allies. So they're going to probably be a little bit more thoughtful on how to pick those battles. And so that's our friends, right? We're a danger to our friends, and our enemies are seeing opportunities, just about everywhere they look. They'll take their signals from the Trump administration, continue to take their signals from the Trump administration, but we might very well end up in the world where might makes right, and large states could prey on their medium and small neighbors, and we are back into an era of basically wars of aggression for territorial gain. Something that we see in remote regions of the world, but we haven't seen in the areas that are most relevant to U.S. security, whether that's the Pacific or Europe. And we're entering a really particularly dangerous period of time. So that is really where my mind is with regards to personal issues. Yes, I'll probably run into problems. I don't know. I think there's probably a relatively small group of folks that are both on the Russian sanctions list and on the deep state's enemies list.
Congratulations, you're in.
Yeah. So I'm mindful of those dangers. I'm applying what I refer to as Moscow rules for the next 4 years, which is basically extra mindful of personal security, of a scrutiny from the government, which is what we were subject to in Moscow as an attaché working for the Defense Intelligence Agency. So constant scrutiny by law enforcement, intelligence services, and frankly, I'm applying some of those rules here. So in certain regards, I'm about as well prepared as I can be. I don't think anybody could be really truly prepared, but I'm thoughtful about the dangers ahead.
Yeah, I think all of us are in that situation. I'm getting sued by Mike Flynn, which is super awesome. We still don't know what he's going to do. Rumors are that he's going to run that General Officer Review Board, but who knows? I mean, so it's an interesting time to be alive, needless to say. And I know your family well enough to know that that's at least they're professionals. The nice thing about your family is they've actually learned these rules themselves because they live there. I guess that we have your new book up. I mean, you've got a new book coming out, right? I mean, you've got cool stuff going on. Tell us about the book.
So it's interesting. This is after I was forced out of government. I went and finished up my doctorate at Hopkins, and I wrote a book on the backstory of how we got to this war between Russia and Ukraine. This geopolitical earthquake, really kind of a turning point for the 21st century, of much expanded risk of confrontation. So I interviewed a bunch of presidents and senior policymakers to understand decisions that were made, and came to the conclusion that really across 6 administrations, from George H.W. Bush, from the collapse of the Soviet Union to present, through Biden, we succumbed to really short-term views on how we should be managing Russia, that inspired Russia, that encouraged Russia to be increasingly aggressive on the belief that they're not going to suffer the consequences. And we did that consistently. Of course, during Trump, that was a huge catalyst, and it was an accelerant, like pouring nitro on the challenges. And we now have to contend with a incoming second Trump administration that is the most transactional, no care for what happened before, no understanding of history, no desire to learn from history, and everything is kind of in a discrete box of activity. Exact opposite of what my prescription is. I talk about something called values primacy, values-based foreign policy. Why? It's not just kind of a purely idealist view. It's the idea that if we think about our values, that allows us to focus on our long-term interests and look past these small transactional wins that every administration wants, or to at every occasion look to minimize risk on what's immediately in front of us, like the Biden administration did, without recognizing the consequences that those short-term risk mitigation measures actually stack up potentially to create long-term huge risks for us, like a Russia-Ukraine war. So I talk about that, and the book is rewritten from the wonky academic.
What you? No.
And it comes out on the day after the 3rd anniversary of the war.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So
well, we look forward to that, my friend. Thank you for everything as always. Thanks for diving in and your insight. I mean, obviously it's an interesting time for you, your family, and all of us who have been in this fight for a few years. But I appreciate you taking time in. And I think you and I agree on a lot of things in the world. And one of those is we're not going anywhere. You're gonna have to work really hard to get rid of us. And we're kind of stubborn people, and we have stubborn people behind us. So thanks, man. Thanks so much. Go enjoy your Sunday. We appreciate all the time, all the things you do for us.
I appreciate it. Well,
see you, brother.
See you.
Man, I love this. Alex is a great American. His wife, Rachel, you've seen on the show before. We'll probably see her again. I've actually got some exciting news coming up that we have new shows coming out, and that kind of ties into it. I'll leave it at that. But if you're here in the On Democracy channel, we appreciate you. If you're not watching on our YouTube channel, we're really trying to build that YouTube channel up. It's sort of our home. That's On Democracy channel, at On Democracy channel. That's where we're broadcasting this live, as well as my social media channels. But we're really trying to build a nice audience there as well. The world's kind of crazy. TikTok got banned and everything else. And this is the place. This is kind of our home. Like I mentioned, we'll have more episodes of On Democracy FPWellman, our flagship podcast. But we're also got a new show launching. I'm really excited to announce soon. It's just an exciting time to be here. We're doing a lot more long form content. That's our jam. As always, you can find my writings and writings for the community at our Substack, FPWellman.substack.com. I've been wrote a piece yesterday about how we have to resist the propaganda. And that's probably my final word today. We have less time for the final word than usual, thank God. But what I do feel very strongly about, folks, is, Tim Snyder says, don't obey in advance. But I would argue also, don't believe in advance. Our opponents in this whole thing, the MAGA movement, they want us to be scared. I listened to Baghdad Betty in 1990. I watched Baghdad Bob in 2003 tell lies to the Iraqi people, tell lies to me and my fellow soldiers as we prepared for the missions we were handed by our government. And I tell you right now, they wanted us to be afraid. They wanted us to surrender in advance. And the thing is, that's when you see, if you're on social media, you see some of our peers or our friends who are more progressive leaning saying, well, that's it. It's over. Democracy's ended. Look, I don't believe that. I don't believe that for one damn second. We have power. Donald Trump is a lame duck president the day he takes office tomorrow. Okay. He's not going to stay in forever, just like Jonathan Alter said. So we have to keep that in mind. And so do not buy their lies. Don't believe them when they say democracy's over. Don't believe them when they say we shouldn't resist. We will resist these. We will push back on these policies. We still have power in an American democracy. So with that, I'd love you to subscribe to that, fpwellman.substack.com. Of course, this is the home of the On Democracy channel. We're here every Sunday. JJ and I are pulling it out every week. I don't know. If you're new, go back. I'd love you to watch the whole show, especially our panel. What an incredible panel guest. Eliza jumped in, you guys. Eliza contacted me at 5 minutes to going live. and look at her. She came in and did a brilliant job. And we are so blessed to have the friends and the partners and the advocates that kind of join us in the show. So I'm so glad to have all of you. I'm looking in the comments right now. I can, for those, I've got a big monitor. I can see your comments, and I love hearing from you guys. It means the world to us. We've got a wonderful community here. Okay, Lois, we'll answer questions. I promise. I'll try and Lois, I'll tell you what, I will go into the comments after the show and try and answer some questions from the show. If that's good. I really appreciate you guys. If nothing else, leave a comment in the regular video when this is over. I appreciate you. Find us on Blue Sky. We now have an On Democracy channel, Blue Sky channel on the Blue Sky Network, as well as my own FPWellman on Blue Sky. We would love to see you there. In the meantime, JJ and I appreciate you coming to join us, and Katie, our producers, every week right here on the On Democracy Network. We're thrilled to be a part of this. Hey, look, we're not done yet, folks. I know there's some sadness. There's some nervousness with what happens tomorrow. I'm going to be right here next Sunday. You're going to be here too, because you know what? Nothing changes. Our democracy goes on. The power is in our hands. With that, thanks for joining us, and we will see you soon.